Hello everyone. Well, today's video is I'm going to be doing sort of another informative video, kind of about myself, and I'm going to talk about the experiences that relate to the title in this video. As you can see, the title is Being a Visual Learner. Now, I have mentioned that I am very much a visual learner, and what I want to talk about today is how exactly I learn by visual aids and how it helps me, but also the disadvantages of explaining it to others and experiences in the past. So, as I've said, most people know that I have Asperger's syndrome and learning difficulties. I was born prematurely, and as a result, and I was starved of oxygen at birth due to my mother suffering from a pre-existing condition. Then from when I started school, my parents had told me prior to starting school that I would be slower than the other children because I had various disabilities. They did have the supports in place to assist my cerebral palsy, but my learning difficulties I don't think were that understood at the time. Of course, because you start school when you're 4 years old, and that's before life barely begins for you, really. So yeah. So what happened was, when I was in primary school, I had to have one-to-one support from a support worker who was an amazing person. And just I'll say quickly that this particular support worker was with me nearly from my reception year to nearly the end of my school days, primary school days rather. She left about 5 months before I left primary school at year 6. And so when a teacher, because as you know, when you're at school, at least back in the 90s, they didn't have a lot of the aids I think I use now in schools because of with all the technological improvements. It was 1994 when I started primary school, and I used to sit in the classroom with the other students. And of course, what teacher does when they give you a task to do or a piece of work, normally what I remember is being sat at my desk in front of with the blackboard in front of me and the teacher standing at the front, and or that they gather all the class into one corner and explain to you how to do this and that. And very quickly, this became a very big frustration for the teachers. More of a frustration for the school staff at the time than it was for me, because I was so young I didn't really understand myself. And also for my parents. But because I didn't have a good attention span, and I know that due to my learning difficulties, what I've learned now is I have a different way of processing information. And that's what the problem was. When I used to sit in a corner or was at the desk in the classroom with the teacher standing in front of me at the blackboard, things would literally go in one ear and out the other. I couldn't remember anything really I was instructed to do, depending on how complex the task was. And of course, as you go on, from when you start at the infant stage in primary school to junior year, work gets harder. For a lot of subjects, when I started to get to the junior stage, I was given a lot of easier work, which actually didn't help my self-confidence much, because as I grew, I did begin to realise that I was being treated differently to the other kids. And I knew I had cerebral palsy, but I didn't really know that I actually had learning difficulties, so I didn't exactly know the reason why I was having to have these special adjustments and these considerations made for how I would do schoolwork, and why I would have to do different schoolwork for most of the compulsory subjects like maths. Oh, so bad with maths, because it's all numbers and numbers, equations, and all those things. I was always given, from the junior stage, I was given different work for maths and I had to be isolated from the classroom with the support worker, which really hurt my self-confidence, because I did know that I knew very well I wasn't being given the same work as the other students. But so that's kind of how it was. Now when it comes to visual aids, I noticed when I was a kid that I had a certain talent and ability for remembering things that I'd seen on screens, like on videos. Because I used to watch a lot of videos when I was a kid. When I'm talking about videos, I mean VHS, before the days of, DVD, Blu-ray and streaming. That's how it was in the 90s. And, because, I watched so many videos, so, like, things like specific films I like Disney films, I'd watch them and I'd know them by heart. I'd know them so well. How I began to notice, I don't think anyone anticipated that using this type of aid, or could really see that using this type of aid would help me in school. I don't think it occurred to anyone to do that. They were convinced that I just had to be just treated somewhat differently, and being given work at a lower level than the other kids. But when I left primary school, and then went to the special school I went to, that was in 2001. I was 11 years old. Now, the first year at that school went really well, and that was because I was actually placed in the easy class, the bottom class for Key Stage 3. And I didn't really know that at the time, so I was still only 11 years old. I have said in previous videos that by the end of primary school, I was down in the dumps, completely down in the dumps, and I think my parents, they saw the only solution was for me to not continue going to mainstream school. So, with the first year, not much to say about the first year of that school, because it did actually go well. But I was then moved into the tougher class, the top class of Key Stage 3 in Year 8, which I was very proud of because it seemed like an achievement. But then the difference was this was more the type of work that this was a lot more challenging work for subjects, particularly the compulsory subjects, like with maths. You started learning things like double division, double multiplication. So really going from relearning things like the basic times tables, divisions, and things with shapes and the clock and things like that, to go from that to learning that to learning, more challenging sort of Key Stage 3 maths was it started to come as a shock, and I was actually quite worried that I was going to be demoted back to the easier class, but that didn't actually happen. Surprisingly enough, that didn't happen. But teachers did start to get very frustrated with me because I think they kind of expected that I would do well in that class, because I clearly impressed them a lot. I'd clearly impressed the staff a lot in my first year at the school. But the thing is they still didn't have many visual aids. They didn't, the thing is, I did not have the internet at home until I was 16. And I still wasn't aware that I could learn things very well visually. I knew I had a certain talent with seeing things on screens, and hearing audio, also hearing audio as well. That's why I was good with film, because I could remember things I'd seen in films, and occasionally I could answer a question at school that not many of the others could, and that's because I'd seen something that told me the answer on the TV, or whether it be a TV or on the radio, or something I'd watched, whether it be a film, and I would remember it. My memory would jog when a certain type of question was answered. So a few times I got lucky. I remember that when in humanities, which is basically the area that you can do, in some cases at schools they study humanities as separate subjects like history, RE, and history and RE. We did it all in one at this specific school. And I remember the teacher getting quite frustrated. I did get on very well with the teacher, but he did get quite frustrated with me because he couldn't understand why I couldn't remember if he'd spent the first half an hour of a lesson sitting there and talking about what we were wanting to go over today, and then would give us a question and answer sheet, and then I'd forget what was said because because they would just literally sit and talk to you, and sometimes you'd be given a textbook. But after that, at times they left you with the text. You can go back on the text and answer the question. Now this is where the first realisation for me came in, because even though it would take me a bit longer than the others, in some cases a fair bit longer, I never did very well at tests, either for humanities or maths. So not because I knew I couldn't do it. I knew that I had this massive frustration because I knew I had a certain problem. I knew I was fairly bright, but I knew I had some kind of issue that I didn't know how to overcome. But when they give you the textbook and you can go back and answer a question, I could go back and reread the answer to a question, and then eventually it would start to make sense. So I do that, and that did make things a bit easier. So pretty much that was like from year 8 at the special school till the end of it. I had those issues because I didn't have the internet at home. Occasionally I'd be able to go to the library and use the internet, but not that often because there was very limited computer usage there. But the real realisation that I actually had talents with learning visually came after I actually finished college. Just to wrap up on school, because there's not really much more to say regarding school. I did achieve my GCSEs. I got very close to the grades I actually wanted, because we did actually get the internet at home, and we did actually get the internet at home about 5 months before I took my GCSEs. And also, but there was also, I could spend more time at the library then because I was old enough to get a membership for the computer usage, which was free. And then also, you could use the internet for many lessons. When just before you start your exam leave, when your coursework is all done for most of year 11, we were allowed to just do revision in lessons. So yeah, so that sort of wraps up the school. So school did end on a positive because I returned to mainstream school halfway through year 10, which I did say this in my previous video. Anyway, this occurred in 2009, when after I'd been to college and left with a National Certificate in Media. So we're going somewhat ahead now, but yeah. But what I did to fill my time, because I was, like everyone was, there was this massive recession on and hardly any jobs, and me, of course, having a disability made it so hard to find work. What I did was I spent a lot of time, because I now had a MacBook, my first MacBook, which is what I use now. And what I did was I started using, I'd got the hang of using YouTube, and I started to discover video tutorials for certain tasks, like how to operate music software like GarageBand. And also I I already had a huge passion for documentaries, which I'd also mentioned in the previous video I did a couple of weeks ago. And that's when I began to realise that my big problem was I had a different method of learning. And I did begin to understand, I knew about my Asperger's then, and I knew I had certain learning difficulties. And I began to realise that all those a lot of the frustrations I was facing was due to not having the right learning methods. So there were first thing I discovered was video tutorials. I could look up some information in a documentary or on a website, a certain blog, to find out information. And really, that sort of thing has changed my life, because what I can now do is, when I want to set up something on a computer, or for example, I recently bought myself an Apple Watch, and if I had tried to set that up by following the old paper instructions, I wouldn't have got anywhere. So what I did, I got up YouTube. I looked at a previous video tutorial before it arrived, so I had an idea what to do. And so I unwrapped, of course I got it all out of the packaging and charged it up so it was ready when it came. And I tell you, it showed me how to unlock the watch, connect it up to your phone, and it was the easiest thing. Job done. And I've also, and as you see, now I do editing on my videos. I've used video tutorials to learn all these editing skills, which I really want to continue to improve, and I think will continue to improve. So the reason why I want to do this is because I really want to create awareness for people, for people with learning disabilities, and make sure that people know how to support them as individuals. And it's that I don't feel it is right to just be thrown into groups. Certain like, people use the expression I've heard, being chucked into a disability camp, where you will all be treated with the same. Whilst you want to be treated with the same level of respect, it is okay to what we need to understand is they may need to be treated differently in certain fields, whether it's a job, whether it's college, whether it's school, whether it's a social group, or that kind of thing. Get to know them as an individual, and make sure that they get the help they need, and make sure they have the aids they need, so as to avoid them losing their self-confidence, getting frustrated, and not having because if you take time to get to know them, and if you listen to them, they can turn out to be the most amazing people, and there's proof of that. Now, I'm not saying that I'm proof of that. I've definitely improved I've developed so many skills from discovering this ability through visual aids, but just see what it can do. But make sure make sure they get it at the right time, and don't leave. And it's a real shame for them. If they've gone through something and they feel they've not done well, or not had the right support or attention or adjustments, because if that happens and they don't succeed at what they want, then that will be a serious blow to them. So yes, as I say, I do a lot of things. We all do a lot of things digitally now, and we all use social media. We all use we do a lot of shopping online, and I wouldn't be able to have done a lot of the things I can do now, certainly as productively as I do, without the help of visual aids. That's why I wanted to do this. It has changed my life, and I think things can continue to improve for me and for others if people get the right help. Okay, so yes, that was my video talking about being a visual learner and how important it is for people to understand people with disabilities and learning difficulties as individuals. Okay, well, thanks for watching. You are all awesome. See you soon. Bye.